portrait of John Muir from an exhibit in the history room of the Yosemite Museum. This one's my favorite. Toward midday, after a long, tingling scramble through coppices of hazel and ceanthus, I gained the summit of the highest ridge in the neighborhood, and then it occurred to me that it would be a fine thing to climb one of the trees to obtain a wider outlook and get my ear close to the alien music of its topmost branches. But under the circumstances, the choice of a tree was a serious matter. One whose instep was not very strong seemed in danger of being blown down. Oh yeah, sorry. The name of this chapter is A Windstorm in the Forests. Another was branchless to a considerable height above the ground, and at the same time too large to be grasped with arms and legs in climbing, while others were not favorably situated for clear views. After cautiously casting about, I made choice of the tallest of a group of Douglas spruces that were growing close together like a tuft of grass, no one of which seemed likely to fall unless all the rest fell with it. Though comparatively young, they were about 100 feet high, and their lithe, brushy tops were rocking and swirling in wild ecstasy. Being accustomed to climb trees in making botanical studies, I experienced no difficulty in reaching the top of this one, and never before did I enjoy so noble an exhilaration of motion. The slender tops fairly flapped and swished in the passionate torrent, bending and swirling backward and forward, round and round, tracing indescribable combinations of vertical and horizontal curves, while I clung with muscles firm braced like a bobolink on a reed. In its widest sweeps, my treetop described an arc of from 20 to 30 degrees, but I felt sure of its elastic temper, having seen others of the same species still more severely tried, bent almost to the ground indeed, in heavy snows, without breaking a fibre. I was therefore safe, and free to take the wind into my pulses and enjoy the excited forest from my superb outlook. The view from here must be extremely beautiful in any weather. Now my eye roved over the piney hills and dales as over fields of waving grain, and felt the light running in ripples and broad swelling undulations across the valleys from ridge to ridge, as the shining foliage was stirred by corresponding waves of air. Oftentimes these waves of reflected light would break up suddenly into a kind of beaten foam, and again, after chasing one another in regular order, they would seem to bend forward in concentric curves and disappear on some hillside like sea waves on a shelving shore. The quantity of light reflected from the bent needles was so great as to make whole groves appear as if covered with snow, while the black shadows beneath the trees greatly enhanced the effect of the silvery splendor. Excepting only the shadows, there was nothing somber in all this wild sea of pines. On the contrary, notwithstanding this was the winter season, the colors were remarkably beautiful. The shafts of the pine and libocedrus were brown and purple, and most of the foliage was well tinged with yellow. The laurel groves, with the pale undersides of their leaves turned upward, made masses of gray, and then there was many a dash of chocolate color from clumps of manzanita, and jet of vivid crimson from the bark of the madroños, while the ground on the hillsides, appearing here and there through openings between the groves, displayed masses of pale purple and brown. The sounds of the storm corresponded gloriously with this wild exuberance of light and motion. The profound bass of the naked branches and boles booming like waterfalls, the quick, tense vibrations of the pine needles now rising to a shrill, whistling hiss, now falling to a silky murmur, the rustling of laurel groves in the dells, and the keen metallic click of leaf on leaf. All this was heard in easy analysis when the attention was calmly bent. The varied gestures of the multitude were seen to fine advantage, so that one could recognize the different species at a distance of several miles by this means alone, as well as by their forms and colors, and the way they reflected the light. All seemed strong and comfortable, as if really enjoying the storm, while responding to its most enthusiastic greetings. We hear much nowadays concerning the universal struggle for existence, but no struggle in the common meaning of the word was manifest here. No recognition of danger by any tree, no deprecation, but rather an invincible gladness, as remote from exultation as from fear. I kept my lofty perch for hours, frequently closing my eyes to enjoy the music by itself or to feast quietly on the delicious fragrance that was streaming past. The fragrance of the woods was less marked than that produced during warm rain, when so many balsamic buds and leaves are steeped like tea. But from the chafing of resiny branches against each other and the incessant attrition of myriads of needles, the gale was spiced to a very tonic degree. And besides the fragrance from these local sources, there were traces of scents brought from afar. For this wind came first from the sea, rubbing against its fresh briny waves, then distilled through the redwoods, threading rich ferny gulches and spreading itself in broad undulating currents over many a flower-enameled ridge of the coast mountains, and then across the golden plains, up the purple foothills, and into these piney woods, with the varied incense gathered by the way. Winds are advertisements of all they touch, however much or little we may be able to read them, telling their wanderings even by their sense alone. Mariners detect the flowery perfume of land winds far at sea, and sea winds carry the fragrance of dulse and tangle far inland, where it is quickly recognized, although mingled with the scents of 1,000 land flowers. As an illustration of this, may I tell here that I breathed sea air on the Firth of Forth in Scotland while a boy. Okay, long tangent about his childhood in Scotland. It is beautiful, but I want to jump to the concluding paragraph of the chapter. After tracing the Sierra streams from their fountains to the plains, marking where they bloom, white in falls, guide in crystal blah, blah, blah. We all travel the Milky Way together, trees and men. But it never occurred to me until this storm day, while swinging in the wind, that trees are travelers, in the ordinary sense. They make many journeys, not extensive ones, it is true, but our own little journeys, away and back again, are only little more than tree wavings, many of them not so much.